Prime Minister Modi meeting Xi Jinping and Madam Xi standing next to him. And it's just very brief footage, but I think the significance of this is something that we can talk about for a long time, and that really has to do with the fact that India and China, close neighbors, but have been embroiled in very tense situations all along the line of actual control. In the past, Narendra Modi had reached out to the Chinese leadership, Xi Jinping and Modi appeared to have built up a personal equation, but then the Chinese came into Indian territory in Arunachal Pradesh and largely in Ladakh, and quite clearly that equation has plummeted since then. There have not been any face-to-face meeting between the two leaders since the crisis in Ladakh, and this is taking place now. These aren't going to result in talks or anything of that sort. These are just pleasantries which are being exchanged. Maha Siddiqui joins us from Bali. So Maha, interesting, just a 3-second clip that we've actually got. Prime Minister Modi speaking to Xi Jinping. These are just pleasantries, right? Maha, can you hear me?
From the pictures that have emerged, that the two are exchanging. Yes, Vishnu, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Vishnu, this appears to be just pleasantries that are being exchanged by Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the dinner there for the G-20 leaders. And nothing more than that was in fact even expected, because since the last 2 days, questions have been raised to officials whether there is likely to be any meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping. There is no bilateral slated between the two, and it was expected that there will be nothing more than exchange of pleasantries between the two, considering that the friction in eastern Ladakh continues at this point. And that is what one of the sources had clearly pointed out, that the situation in Ladakh still remains such where there are at least a couple of friction points where disengagement has not happened, which ultimately means that there has been no de-escalation at the LAC as well. So under these circumstances, a meeting was in fact indirectly ruled out by the source. However, today at the dinner, one is seeing those pictures emerge of the pleasantries being exchanged. And certainly considering that this is the second time they are coming face to face. Remember, even in Samarkand, they did come face to face for the first time since 2020 when this friction in eastern Ladakh started. But no such pictures really had emerged at that time when they had stopped to greet each other. This time at the dinner there at G20, pleasantries being exchanged. Also, one must remember that in Samarkand, there wasn't really an informal setup where they came face to face, because the informal picture that was taken in Samarkand, Xi Jinping was not present for that, and Prime Minister Modi had not reached Samarkand at that time. So really, this is the first time informally that they are coming face to face at this dinner. In this setup, pleasantries were indeed exchanged between the two.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think I spotted the foreign minister as well, in that in one of the videos that we saw. I can't be entirely certain, but what we did see is Xi Jinping sort of walk into that crowd. In fact, I think on the extreme left, that is Dr. Jaishankar. So he was there as well when that those pleasantries were exchanged. So Xi Jinping walked in. He spoke to I think the Indonesian premier over there, and then as he is on that screen right now. And then the Prime Minister sees him, turns around, and then goes to greet him. It's interesting the sequence. It's interesting the sequence of events.
Yes, in fact.
Talk us through this, Maha.
Yes, Vishnu. That's correct, Vishnu. Because the External Affairs Minister was very much present there. He is visible in the picture, standing on the left-hand side. You can see the Chinese President up front, because the picture is taken from the side, from behind the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister's back is visible, but you can see him exchanging pleasantries. Xi Jinping's face is absolutely visible in those visuals and pictures. And you can see External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar standing with the Prime Minister as well. So certainly exchange of pleasantries also in this tense situation that has existed between India and China over the last 2.5 years because of the friction in eastern Ladakh is at the moment something that is worth reporting, considering that there has been no exchange of dialogue at that level of the Prime Minister and the Chinese President Xi Jinping, that they have talked about this friction in Eastern Ladakh face to face. Although they had come face to face, as I was pointing out, in Samarkand as well, for the first time after the 2020 friction in Eastern Ladakh started. There is much speculation, there has been much speculation rather, had been much speculation even before the Samarkand summit, SCO summit, that the two might have at least a pull aside, but that did not happen. And even at that time, the indication was that the Eastern Ladakh friction is too big an issue at the moment for the leaders to actually go into any sort of structured bilateral meeting till such time as that friction gets over. In the list of bilateral meetings as well, in Bali over here, there is no mention of any meeting with Xi Jinping. However, this exchange of pleasantries itself creating news at the moment, though we must remember that at pretty senior a level, that is at the level of the foreign ministers, the exchange of dialogue and conversation has been on, despite the fact that the friction exists. S. Shankar and Wang Yi have had several meetings, face-to-face dialogue over the last 2 years. They've had two on the sidelines of the SCO foreign ministers meet as well, and one when Wang Yi in fact traveled to India too. Many believe that he was testing the waters in case the BRICS summit was to be held in person. Would Prime Minister Modi visit? Ultimately, the BRICS summit happened virtually, so the Prime Minister didn't have to travel because China was the host country this time around. Despite that, the exchange at a pretty high level has existed to sort out this issue of Eastern Ladakh, but at the moment, two friction points at least still remain, Depsang, Demchok, as well as no de-escalation of troops, which was started by China, mirrored by India in the year 2020.